My daughter-in-law tried to kick me out right after marriage. She never knew I own a 50-mile-per-hour mansion. Hi friends, if you enjoy our stories, please subscribe. It's free and your support helps us keep sharing these heartfelt moments. Tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Thank you so much. Now, for years I believed my family was whole. I was a widow, 67 years old, living in a quiet suburb outside Atlanta, Georgia. My husband Robert had passed 5 years earlier. He left me with memories of fortune and this enormous white stone mansion on 5 acres. I poured my soul into raising my only son, Daniel. Every soccer game, every science fair, I was there, cheering louder than anyone else. So when Daniel told me he was getting married, my heart lit up like Christmas morning. I thought finally I'll have a daughter to share holidays with, someone to cook with on Thanksgiving, someone to laugh with over coffee on Sundays. The wedding was held in a small Baptist church downtown, the kind with stained glass windows that catch the sunlight in 1,000 colors. I sat in the front pew holding a bouquet of lilies Robert once bought me. When the doors opened, she walked in. Melissa, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. She was stunning in white satin, her veil glimmering under the chandeliers. Daniel's face beamed as he saw her, and for that moment I believed my life was turning brighter again. The reception was at the Brookhaven Country Club. Crystal chandeliers, jazz band tables covered with roses and gold-trimmed china. I had paid for most of it, nearly $75,000 in expenses because I wanted the day perfect. I didn't mind. After all, what is money compared to family? Guests clinked champagne glasses, toasting to love, to unity, to new beginnings. Daniel raised his glass. To my mother who made me who I am today. My chest swelled with pride. Tears blurred the sparkling lights. For a moment, I felt Robert beside me, his hand warm on mine, as if he too was proud of the family we'd built. Melissa leaned close during dinner. She smiled sweetly and said, "From now on, you don't have to be alone." Those words sank deep into my heart. I believed them. I believed her. We danced to Sinatra, ate red velvet cake, tall as my waist, and sent lanterns floating into the night sky. I thought it was a new chapter, one of peace of love where my family would finally feel complete. I remember driving home that night. The cool autumn air smelled of pine. I held the wedding program on my lap, running my fingers over their names printed in silver ink, Daniel and Melissa Hart. I whispered to myself, this is what Robert wanted, a family strong enough to last generations. I couldn't have been more wrong, because behind Melissa's perfect smile, behind every toast and every promise, there was something colder, something sharp waiting for the right moment to cut. But that night, I didn't see it. That night, I was just a mother. A woman proud of her son and foolish enough to trust a stranger with the keys to my heart. The mansion glowed in the distance, all $50 million of stone and glass. I thought it was the house that made us secure. I thought love was enough to keep it safe. I didn't know that very same house would soon become the battlefield. And I didn't know the enemy was sitting across from me at the wedding table, clinking her glass, calling me mom with honey on her lips. That night, I fell asleep smiling. My son was married, my family was bigger, and I believed with all my soul that tomorrow would bring nothing but joy. But joy has a way of disguising itself. Sometimes it comes wearing betrayal's mask, and sometimes the hands you trust most are already reaching to push you out the door. The wedding glow faded faster than I expected. 2 weeks after the house felt different. The warmth I once felt in every hallway was now replaced with something cold. Melissa had moved in with Daniel. I thought we'd be like a sitcom family. Dinner together, laughter, echoing holidays, full of love and tradition. But the very first Sunday proved me wrong. I woke early like always and started cooking breakfast. Biscuits, bacon, scrambled eggs with hot coffee brewing in the pot. The smell filled the kitchen just like Robert used to love. When Daniel walked in, his face lit up. "Smells amazing, Mom." He kissed my cheek just like he had since he was little. Melissa followed a moment later. She looked around the kitchen, her manicured fingers tapping the counter. Her nose wrinkled. Biscuits, bacon. "That's not healthy, Eleanor. We don't eat like that anymore." Her voice was light, but the jab was sharp. Daniel laughed nervously, grabbing a plate anyway. Later that week, I overheard them in the living room. Melissa was on the phone with her sister. Her tone was syrupy sweet, but her words sliced through me. She still thinks this is her house. Honestly, it's like living with a roommate. She cooks this heavy Southern food, and Daniel just eats it like a kid. I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding like a drum. I wanted to believe she was joking, but when I stepped into the room, she went silent. Her eyes flicked to me. The fake smile returned instantly. "Oh, Eleanor, we were just talking about recipes." Her laugh was brittle like glass ready to crack. The days blurred into small humiliations. At dinner, she'd say Daniel passed me the salt as if I wasn't sitting right there. She decorated the living room with modern furniture I'd never choose. She boxed up Robert's old armchair, the one he read his newspaper in every morning. When I asked why, she smiled coldly. "It's outdated, Eleanor. We're building our style now." One afternoon, I found her in my study. The desk drawers were half open, papers scattered, folders pulled from the cabinet. She startled when she saw me. "Oh, I was just looking for printer paper." But I knew my files. Those weren't just any papers, they were property deeds, tax forms, the foundation of Robert's empire. I gathered the folders silently, my hands trembling. She watched me with a smile that never reached her eyes. At night, I heard whispers. When I walked into the living room, the conversation stopped. Melissa's eyes narrowed and Daniel looked away. I asked softly, "Is everything all right?" Melissa answered too quickly. "Of course, just private matters, you know." Private matters. In my house. The house I built with Robert. The real blow came on a Saturday. Daniel had gone to Home Depot and Melissa and I were alone. I was watering the hydrangeas in the front yard. Melissa stepped outside, her arms crossed. "You know, Eleanor, this house feels a little crowded. Don't you think it's time you considered downsizing?" I nearly dropped the watering can. "Excuse me." She tilted her head, her voice dripping honey. "You've lived here long enough. Daniel and we need privacy. You could find a nice condo downtown, closer to your book club, right?" The Georgia sun burned hot, but a chill ran through me. I looked at her face, smooth and smiling, but her eyes told the truth. She didn't see me as family, she saw me as an obstacle. I forced a smile. That's an interesting thought, but inside my chest ached like stone. That evening, Daniel returned with bags of lumber. Melissa kissed him sweetly, then whispered something in his ear. He glanced at me, hesitated, then looked away. The distance between us stretched miles. My son, my only child, was slipping further each day. I sat alone in Robert's old study, running my fingers over the framed photo of our wedding day in 1972. His steady eyes stared back at me as if warning me. I whispered, "Robert, what have I done? Did I welcome the wrong person into our family?" My reflection in the glass looked older, weaker, lonelier than I had ever imagined. But beneath the grief, a small flame flickered. Because while Melissa thought she was pushing me aside, she didn't know the truth. The mansion, every brick, every acre still belonged to me. And sooner or later, she would find out. It was late Friday night. The cicadas buzzed outside the Georgia air, heavy and warm. I was upstairs in my room folding laundry when I heard voices downstairs. They weren't whispers this time. They were sharp, loud, cutting. Melissa's laugh echoed through the hallway, a laugh without warmth, a laugh that made my skin crawl. I crept halfway down the staircase. From there, I saw them. Daniel, my son, standing by the kitchen island. Melissa across from him, arms crossed, chin high. "Daniel, this is ridiculous. We're newlyweds. We need our own space. Your mom is still here, acting like this is her house." My heart stopped. Daniel didn't answer. He just rubbed his forehead, silent, torn between two worlds. Melissa's voice rose. "You can't even have a private moment. She's always watching, always cooking, always in your business. It's suffocating, Daniel." Her words stabbed like knives. I wanted to step forward. I wanted to scream, "This is my home!" But my throat closed tight. I clutched the banister, my knuckles white. Then Melissa spotted me. Her eyes locked on mine. For a moment, her sweet mask cracked. "Well," she said, hands on her hips. "Speak of the devil." Daniel turned his face pale. "Mom, But Melissa cut him off. "No, Daniel, enough. Eleanor needs to hear this." She marched toward the staircase. Each heel click on the hardwood floor was like a drumbeat of doom. She stopped at the bottom, looked up at me, and spat the words that shattered my world. "This isn't your house anymore. You need to pack your things. Tonight." For a second, I thought I misheard. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. My laundry basket trembled in my arms. "Excuse me," I whispered. My voice was thin like a child's. Melissa's smile widened. "You heard me. It's time you moved out. Daniel and I need privacy. You're in the way." Daniel finally spoke. His voice cracked. "Melissa, maybe we should—" She shot him a glare, the kind that silences men. And he stopped. He stopped. My son. The boy I raised. The man Robert and I built a life for. He stopped for her. I stepped down 2 stairs, my knees aching. "Daniel," I said softly, "are you really going to let her talk to me like this?" He avoided my eyes. He looked at the floor hands shoved in his pockets. My chest burned. It was the kind of pain that doesn't kill you but makes you wish it did. Melissa moved closer. She picked up the laundry basket from my arms and dumped the clothes on the floor. "Start packing, Eleanor. Your time here is over." I gasped. Shirts and socks scattered across the polished hardwood. The same floor Robert and I had chosen 40 years ago. Tears blurred my sight. I looked at Daniel, begging silently for him to step in, to say something, anything. But he didn't. He just stood there. And that silence was louder than any scream. Melissa's voice turned sharp. "You're lucky we don't call someone to help move you out. There's a Motel 6 just 3 miles down the road. You can start fresh there." Her words dripped with cruelty. Cheap motel, 3 miles away, as if I was nothing more than luggage to discard. I stumbled back up the stairs. My chest heaved. I shut my bedroom door, pressed my back against it, and let out a sound I didn't recognize as mine. It was grief, rage, betrayal, all tangled into one cry. The walls of the mansion suddenly felt like a cage I no longer belonged in. At midnight, I sat on the edge of my bed. The moonlight spilled across Robert's old photograph on the dresser, his smile steady, his eyes full of the strength I had lost. I whispered, "Robert, they're throwing me out. Our own son is letting it happen." My tears soaked the pillow, but under the grief, something stirred. A flicker of fire. A whisper inside me. They don't know the truth. They don't know whose name is on the deed. The night dragged on, each hour heavier than the last. Outside, I heard laughter. Melissa's laughter. The sound of victory. But she didn't win. Not yet. Because while she thought I was defeated, I was already remembering the papers locked in my study. The proof that the mansion, all $50 million of it, was mine. And one day soon, she would learn that the hard way. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stranger's place. Cold walls, closed doors, laughter that never included me. After that night, Daniel barely spoke to me. He slipped into their room early, closed the door, and stayed there until morning. I tried calling him at work, straight to voicemail. I sent him a text, "Daniel, can we talk tonight?" No reply. By the 3rd day, I realized Melissa had convinced him to block me. My own son, the boy I raised, the man I sacrificed my youth for. Now I was a ghost in his phone. One afternoon, I baked his favorite apple pie just the way Robert taught me. Golden crust cinnamon filling steam rising like comfort. I left it on the counter, hoping the smell would bring him back to me. Hours later, I found it untouched. The pie sat cold, a knife resting beside it, never used. Melissa's green smoothie glass was in the sink instead. The message was clear. The isolation grew heavier each day. I used to sit with Daniel after dinner watching Braves games on TV, cheering when Acuna hit a home run. Now I sat alone in the den, the screen flickering, my voice swallowed by silence. I called out, "Daniel, wanna watch the game?" No answer, only the muffled sound of Melissa's laughter upstairs. The neighbors noticed. Mrs. Carter from across the street knocked on my door one morning. "You okay, Eleanor?" Her eyes full of concern. "Haven't seen you walking the dog lately." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just busy." But inside my heart screamed for help. I wanted to tell her everything, that my daughter-in-law was slowly erasing me from my own life. But shame sealed my lips. The cruelest part was how Melissa staged everything. When relatives visited, she was sugar sweet. "Eleanor, why don't you sit? Let me serve you." I watched their eyes soften, believing her kindness was real. They never saw the glares she gave me when backs were turned. And Daniel, he stood beside her, silent, nodding as if hypnotized by her smile. I tried to reach out one last time. Late one night, I knocked on their bedroom door. "Daniel, please. I just want to talk." There was silence. Then a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. Melissa's voice. "Don't answer. She'll give up eventually." My heart dropped. The floor beneath me felt unsteady. I pressed my palm to the door. "Son, I love you." My voice cracked, but no reply came. Only silence, heavy, cruel silence. The days turned into weeks. I wandered the mansion halls, touching the banisters Robert built, tracing the wallpaper we picked out in 1985. Each memory was alive, but the people inside the house treated me like a shadow. At dinner, they ate without me. Melissa's friends filled the dining room laughing over wine while I sat in the kitchen alone eating soup from a chipped bowl. The worst moment came on a rainy Tuesday. I returned from the grocery store, arms heavy with bags. When I tried my key at the front door, it didn't fit. Melissa had changed the locks. I pounded on the door rail, soaking my coat. Through the glass, I saw her smirk. She opened just enough to let me inside, her words slicing through me. "Accidents happen, Eleanor. You should really be more careful with your keys." Her laugh echoed in the foyer. Daniel stood behind her, his eyes on the floor. That night, I lay in bed, the rain tapping against the windows. I stared at the ceiling, tears streaming into my ears. I had nothing. No voice, no respect, no son. The mansion that once echoed with Christmas mornings and birthdays was now a prison of silence. But as I drifted into restless sleep, a thought surfaced. A sharp reminder of the papers locked in my study. The mansion, the deed, the truth. Melissa could isolate me, erase me from conversations, even change the locks. But she couldn't change the fact that every brick of this house still belonged to me. And someday soon, that truth would break through their wall of lies. The rain cleared the next morning. The Georgia air smelled of wet earth, fresh pine, and something sharper like the world itself was trying to wake me up. I sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a cold mug of coffee. Melissa's laughter carried down the hallway, her voice smooth as butter, but sharp as broken glass. "Daniel, I told you. She's losing it. Soon she'll have no choice but to leave." Their words stabbed deeper than any knife. I stared at the dark coffee, my reflection staring back. An old woman. Tired. Forgotten. Pushed aside. But then my eyes lifted. Through the open doorway, I saw the study. Robert's study. The one Melissa rarely entered. The one place still untouched. A thought struck me so sudden it made my chest tighten. The files. The papers Robert and I kept locked away. I pushed back my chair. The legs screeched against the hardwood, a sound that echoed through the empty hall. Melissa's voice paused. "Everything okay, Eleanor?" I forced a smile, my voice steady. "Just cleaning." I slipped into the study, closing the door softly behind me. The room smelled of cedar and leather, just like Robert left it. Books lined the shelves, old ledgers stacked neatly on the desk. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, a heartbeat, reminding me that I was still here. I knelt by the bottom cabinet, the one with the brass lock. My fingers trembled as I pulled the small key from my necklace, the same key I'd worn for decades. The lock clicked open. I held my breath. Inside a folder, worn edges, heavy paper, the weight of truth. I opened it on the desk. There it was. The deed. The original contract for the mansion, signed in Robert's steady handwriting, witnessed, notarized, stamped with the county seal. My name, not Daniel's, not Melissa's, mine. The mansion, all $50 million of stone, glass, and land, was legally mine. Tears stung my eyes, not from sadness this time, from relief, from power I thought I'd lost. I whispered to Robert's photo on the desk. "You thought ahead, didn't you? You made sure no one could erase me." The weight on my chest eased for the first time in weeks. Melissa could laugh. She could change locks, whisper lies, turn Daniel against me. But she couldn't rewrite the law. She couldn't change this truth. I gathered every document, the deed, property tax receipts, insurance records, even the last appraisal, $50 million signed off by a licensed firm in Buckhead. I slid them into a leather briefcase, locking it with a snap. The sound felt final, like a gavel striking in court. That evening, Melissa tried again. She cornered me in the hallway, her voice sweet, her eyes cold. "Eleanor, I called an agent today. We should start looking at condos for you, 2 bedrooms downtown. Something manageable." Her words dripped false kindness. I looked at her. For the first time in weeks, I didn't shrink. I didn't tremble. Instead, I smiled. "Oh, Melissa, that won't be necessary." She blinked. For a split second, confusion cracked her mask. "What do you mean?" I stepped past her, the briefcase firm in my grip. "You'll see soon enough." Her lips parted as if to argue, but she stayed silent. Maybe it was the way I walked. Maybe it was the fire in my voice. For the first time, she looked uncertain. That night, I spread the papers on my bed. The lamplight glowed over every word, every seal, every signature. Proof, undeniable proof. I imagined the look on her face when she realized, the way her smirk would fade, the way her voice would crack. And Daniel, my son, he would finally see, finally understand, that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't disposable. For weeks I had been drowning in their silence, but now I held the rope that would pull me out and hang their lies for all to see. I slid the folder back into the briefcase, clicked it shut, and placed it under my bed. Then I turned off the light, my heart steady for the first time. Sleep came easier that night. Because while Melissa thought I was defeated, I knew the truth. And truth has a way of breaking through the darkest lies. The morning sun poured through my curtains. For once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like a shadow in my own home. I had proof. Solid legal proof. But proof alone isn't enough. I needed allies. People who could stand with me when the storm finally broke. The first person I thought of was Mr. Lawson. He'd been Robert's lawyer for decades, handled every contract, every tax filing, every estate detail. His office was only 10 miles away, a brick building near downtown Decatur, the kind with oak doors and a bell that jingled when you walked in. I called his secretary. "Tell him it's Eleanor Hart, Robert's widow." There was a pause. Then she said, "Of course, Mrs. Hart. He'll see you tomorrow morning." That night, I kept quiet at dinner. Melissa was bragging about a new spa she wanted in Buckhead. Daniel nodded, half listening. Neither of them noticed the leather briefcase at my feet. I smiled silently, spooning soup into my bowl. Every bite tasted like victory. The next morning, I drove to Decatur. The roads were busy with commuters, but my grip on the wheel was steady. When I pulled into Lawson and Reed, the sight of his brass plaque nearly made me cry. Inside, it smelled of paper and polish. Mr. Lawson himself came out, gray hair, steady hands, the same man who stood with Robert through every business deal. "Eleanor," he said warmly, taking my hands, "it's been too long. What brings you in today?" We sat in his office, dark wood shelves filled with legal books. I set the briefcase on his desk. The snap of the locks opening echoed like thunder in my chest. "I need help," I said. And for the next hour, I told him everything. Melissa's whispers, Daniel's silence, the night she demanded I leave, the pie untouched, the locks changed, every wound I carried. He listened without interruption. When I finished, he leaned back, tapping the papers with one finger. "Eleanor, this deed is airtight. No one can take this house from you, but you'll need more than papers. You'll need witnesses." I nodded, thinking of Mrs. Carter, my neighbor who saw the tension, who heard the shouting through her open windows at night, and the housekeeper, Maria. She'd been with us for years. She saw Melissa dump my clothes, heard the cruel remarks when Daniel wasn't around. I gave their names to Mr. Lawson. He wrote them down carefully. "We'll be ready," he said. "When the time comes, we'll make sure the truth is heard." When I left his office, the air felt lighter. I wasn't alone anymore. The battle was still ahead, but now I had an army behind me. That evening, Melissa tried again. She slid a glossy brochure across the table. "Look at this, Eleanor, 2-bedroom condo near Piedmont Park. Wouldn't it be perfect for you?" Her tone was syrupy sweet. Daniel glanced at me, waiting for my reaction. I smiled. "That does look nice, but I think I'll stay here." Her smile froze, just for a second, but I saw it. The crack, the fear. Later that week, I visited Mrs. Carter. She lived across the cul-de-sac in a blue ranch house with hydrangeas blooming by the porch. She poured me sweet tea, the Georgia way cold glass ice cubes clinking. When I asked if she'd be willing to speak up if needed, her eyes hardened. Eleanor, I've seen plenty. I've heard the shouting. If they try anything, you can count on me. Her words wrapped around me like armor. Maria, the housekeeper, was even firmer. I've worked for this family 20 years. I know who owns that house, and I know what she's trying to do. Say the word Mrs. Hart, and I'll stand with you. I thanked her with trembling hands. I'd never felt prouder to have people in my corner. The days passed, and Melissa grew bolder. She bragged on the phone about her house, about renovations she planned. But every word she spoke, every lie she told, only tightened the rope she was weaving around herself. Because behind the curtains, behind my silence, I was building a wall of truth. And when the time came, that wall would crush her lies flat. One night, as I locked the study door, Daniel appeared in the hallway. His eyes were tired, his voice quiet. "Mom, Melissa says you're making things harder. Maybe it would be easier if you moved out for a while." My heart clenched. I wanted to scream to shake him awake, but instead I simply nodded. "We'll see, Daniel, we'll see." He walked away relieved at my calm, but if only he knew. I returned to my room, the briefcase under my bed, my allies ready, my lawyer prepared. Melissa thought I was weak. She thought I was fading, but in truth, I was sharper than ever, because silence can be power, and sometimes the quietest preparation leads to the loudest victory. Thanksgiving arrived like it always did. The air crisp, the trees shedding their last leaves. In Georgia, the afternoons were still warm enough for kids to play outside, but nights carried a winter chill. I woke early that morning. I basted the turkey just like Robert used to love. The smell of rosemary and butter filled the kitchen, wrapping me in memories. But this year felt different. The house wasn't filled with joy. It was filled with tension. Every step, every glance was a reminder of the war brewing. Relatives began arriving at noon. Cousins, aunts, old family friends. They carried pumpkin pies, green bean casseroles, cranberry sauce in glass dishes. Everyone complimented the mansion. "This house is incredible, Eleanor. You must feel so blessed." I smiled politely, but Melissa's smile was sharper. She kept guiding them around like she was the hostess, like the house was hers. "Daniel and I have big plans," I overheard her telling a cousin. "Maybe knock down that wall, open the space up. It'll be our dream home soon." My hands tightened on the carving knife, but I said nothing, not yet. By 5 o'clock, everyone was seated in the dining room. The long oak table was set with china. Robert and I bought on our 25th anniversary. Candles flickered, casting shadows on the walls. The turkey sat golden in the center, stuffing spilling from its sides. Daniel raised his glass. "I want to thank everyone for coming. This is our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. Melissa and I are grateful to share it with all of you." Applause, smiles, the clinking of glasses. But then Melissa stood. She didn't raise a glass. She placed both hands on the table, her eyes sweeping the room. "Actually," she said loudly, "there's something important we should announce." The chatter quieted. Forks paused midair. Every eye turned toward her. Melissa's smile was sweet, but her tone was steel. "Daniel and I have decided it's time to take the house in a new direction. We'll be making it our own, our dream home. From this day forward, this mansion belongs to us." The room fell silent. I felt every heartbeat in my chest. I looked at Daniel. His jaw tightened. He didn't correct her. Not a word. Gasps echoed around the table. One cousin whispered, "But isn't the house?" Melissa cut him off with a glare. "It's ours now. We're building our future here. Eleanor has done enough. It's time she moved on." Her words rang in my ears, cold, final, like a door slamming shut. I rose slowly from my chair. The wood scraped against the floor. Every face turned toward me. My knees trembled, but my voice was steady. "Melissa," I said softly, "you seem very confident." Her eyes narrowed. "I am. This is our home now. Everyone here should know that." She smirked, glancing at the guests as if daring me to argue. I took a deep breath. Then I reached down, lifted the leather briefcase, and placed it on the table. The snap of the locks opening echoed louder than thunder. I pulled out the folder, slid it across the table, and opened it wide for all to see. "This," I said, "is the deed to this mansion." Gasps rippled around the table. I pointed to the bold letters. My name, not Daniel's, not Melissa's, mine. I lifted the page high enough for every cousin, every aunt, every family friend to read. Melissa's face drained of color. Her smile faltered. Her hands twitched on the tablecloth. She stammered. That's old paperwork. It doesn't mean anything. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out property tax receipts, insurance records, the last appraisal showing the mansion valued at $50 million. All with my name, all undeniable. I spread them across the table one by one like cards in a winning hand. Does this look outdated to you? I asked calmly. My voice was steel, unshakable. The room buzzed with whispers. Cousins leaned in, reading every line. Aunt Margaret gasped, hand over her mouth. Melissa's mask cracked completely. She pointed at me, her voice sharp, trembling. You're lying, you're manipulating everyone. Daniel, say something. All eyes turned to Daniel, my son, my only child. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at me, then at the papers, then at Melissa. Daniel, she hissed, tell them the house is ours. But his face was pale, his voice barely a whisper. I don't know anymore. Melissa exploded. She slammed her hands on the table. This is ridiculous. She's old. She's confused. She doesn't belong here. Her words were venom. But before I could reply, another voice cut through the room. Mrs. Carter, my neighbor. She had joined us that evening as she often did on holidays. I've seen everything she said firmly. I've heard the shouting at night. I've watched you throw her clothes outside. This woman isn't confused. She's the rightful owner. The room erupted. Voices clashed, some in shock, some in anger, but no one doubted anymore. I gathered the papers, folded them neatly, and placed them back in the briefcase. Then I looked at Melissa straight into her eyes. You wanted to make an announcement, so did I. This house belongs to me, and no one, not you, not anyone, will take it away. Silence fell, heavy, absolute. Melissa sat down slowly, her face pale, her lips pressed tight. Daniel stared at his plate, shame burning across his cheeks. The guests avoided his eyes. The turkey grew cold, untouched in the center of the table. But I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt strong. I felt whole. I lifted my glass. To truth, I said simply, to justice, and to the family that stands on honesty, not lies. Some raised their glasses. Others sat frozen. But it didn't matter. The war had shifted. The battle lines were clear. And for once, I wasn't the one cornered. I was the one holding the light. The dining room was frozen. Candles flickered low, casting long shadows across the walls. Melissa sat stiff, her jaw tight, her fists clenched in her lap. Daniel stared at his plate as if the mashed potatoes could save him from the truth. Around us, family whispered. Some shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Others exchanged glances, unsure of what to believe. But I knew the tide had turned. The truth was out. Mrs. Carter broke the silence. Her voice was steady, her gaze locked on Daniel. I've lived across the street 20 years. I've seen your mother water her flowers, shovel her driveway, host barbecues in this backyard. This is her house. She built this family here. And I've watched your wife try to strip it from her. The room buzzed with murmurs. Some nodded. Others looked away, embarrassed they hadn't noticed sooner. Melissa slammed her glass down. Enough of this! This is nonsense! She's twisting everything. Her voice cracked. The sweet mask she wore was slipping fast. She grabbed Daniel's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. Tell them, Daniel. Tell them this house is ours. Daniel looked up. His eyes finally met mine. And for the first time in months, I saw the boy I raised. Not the silent man Melissa had molded, but my son. The child who once held my hand on the first day of school. The teenager who hugged me after his father's funeral. His lips trembled. I can't. Melissa's face twisted in rage. She shook his arm, her voice rising higher. You coward. After everything I've done for you, you're really going to side with her. An old woman clinging to a house. Gasps filled the room. Relatives stared in shock. Some children covered their ears, startled by her shouting. Daniel pulled his arm away. His voice was quiet but firm. Stop, Melissa, just stop. The air shifted. A weight lifted from my chest. But the moment wasn't over. Not yet. Because from the corner of the room, a voice spoke. A voice none of us expected. It was Maria, our longtime housekeeper. She had stood quietly by the door, helping serve plates and refill glasses. Now she stepped forward, her eyes blazing with conviction. I've worked here 20 years. I've seen who respects this house and who doesn't. I've seen Eleanor pay every bill, keep every record, and fight for this family. And I've seen Melissa throw her clothes outside, change the locks, and lie to this man she married. The room erupted again, voices overlapping, questions flying, but Maria didn't waver. Her truth was steady, her words undeniable. Melissa shot her a look of pure hatred, but Maria stood tall, arms crossed like a soldier on a battlefield. Daniel's face went pale. He rubbed his temples, his voice breaking. "Melissa, is that true?" Melissa scoffed, rolling her eyes. "She's just the help. You're really going to believe her?" But Maria didn't flinch. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and suddenly the room filled with sound. A recording. Melissa's voice cold and sharp. "This isn't your house, Eleanor. You're nothing here. Pack your bags and get out tonight." Gasps. Hands covered mouths. Daniel staggered back as if punched. Melissa lunged for the phone. "Delete that. You had no right." But it was too late. Everyone had heard. The truth was sealed in digital stone. Daniel's hands shook. He turned to me, his eyes wet. "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. I should have protected you." My throat closed. For months, I had dreamed of hearing those words. But when they finally came, they cut as deep as they healed. Melissa wasn't finished. She spun toward him, her voice desperate now. "Daniel, don't you see? She's manipulating you. She wants to control everything. The money, the house, you..." But Daniel stood tall. For the first time, he didn't look like her puppet. He looked like Robert's son. His voice was steady. "No, Melissa. You wanted control. You almost made me lose my mother." Melissa froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, she looked small. Relatives exchanged glances. Some shook their heads. Others whispered as if already rewriting the family story. I stood slowly. My legs trembled, but my voice was strong. This house was built on love, on sacrifice, on truth, not lies, not greed. I looked directly at Melissa. "You wanted to erase me, but instead, you revealed yourself. And now everyone sees." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was cleansing, like rain washing away dirt. Melissa slumped back in her chair. Her hands shook. Her eyes darted, searching for an ally. But there were none. Daniel didn't move toward her. He didn't comfort her. He stayed beside me. And for the first time in months, I felt the bond of mother and son beginning to heal. Later that night, after guests had left, the mansion was quiet again. I sat in Robert's old study, the briefcase still beside me. Daniel knocked softly. When he entered, his face was pale, his eyes red from shame. "Mom, I let you down. I let her drive a wedge between us. But tonight, I saw the truth." I reached for his hand, the same hand I held when he was 5 years old, the same hand I held at Robert's funeral. "You're my son," I whispered. "That never changes. But trust has to be earned back." He nodded, his voice breaking. "I'll do whatever it takes." Outside, the November wind howled. The house creaked as if releasing months of tension. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel alone. The battle wasn't over. Justice still had to be served. But now I had what mattered most. The truth, the deed, and my son finally awake. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I walked into Lawson and Reed. The leather briefcase was at my side, heavier with truth than ever before. Mr. Lawson greeted me warmly. "Eleanor, I heard what happened. Sounds like it's time to make things official." I nodded. The fire inside me was steady now. No more trembling, no more silence. That afternoon, Mr. Lawson arranged a family meeting. Daniel, Melissa, myself, and a few relatives who witnessed the scene. Even Mrs. Carter agreed to attend. We sat in the mansion's great room. The fireplace crackled, but the air was cold as stone. Melissa crossed her arms, her chin tilted high as if daring anyone to challenge her. Daniel sat beside me, quiet guilt still heavy on his shoulders. Mr. Lawson placed a thick folder on the coffee table. His voice was calm but carried the weight of authority. "Let's be clear," he began. "This house, this estate, was purchased by Robert and Eleanor Hart. Robert passed years ago, and by law ownership passed to Eleanor alone." He opened the deed, sliding it toward Melissa. Her eyes darted across the page. Her face paled. "This Mr. Lawson," continued, "is current, filed, notarized, and recognized by the county." Melissa laughed suddenly, a sharp, brittle sound. "You think a piece of paper scares me? Daniel and I live here. We're entitled to it." "He's her son." Mr. Lawson adjusted his glasses. "Living here doesn't change ownership. Being her son doesn't either. This property is Eleanor's, every inch of it. And if necessary, I'll take this to court." The room went still. Melissa's smirk faltered. Her hands fidgeted in her lap. She glanced at Daniel, searching for backup. But Daniel didn't move. He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the floor. Finally, he whispered, "She's right, Melissa. It's her house. It's always been her house." Melissa's chair scraped the floor as she jumped up. "This is ridiculous. You're all against me. You think you can humiliate me like this." Her voice rose, echoing off the high ceilings. But no one answered. Not one person came to her defense. Mrs. Carter folded her arms. Maria stood in the doorway, shaking her head. Relatives avoided Melissa's glare, their loyalty gone. Mr. Lawson cleared his throat. "Melissa, you have two choices. You can leave quietly, or we can involve the courts. If we go that route, there will be consequences. Harassment, attempted fraud, possibly even charges." The words hit her like stones thrown into glass. Her face flushed red. She looked around the room but found no allies. Daniel finally spoke. His voice was soft but steady. "Melissa, I can't do this anymore. I let you push Mom aside. I let you change me. But I won't let you steal her life." His words hung heavy. Melissa's lips parted but no sound came out. The mask was gone. Her power was gone. I rose from my chair, my legs strong beneath me. "Melissa," I said calmly, "you tried to erase me, but you erased yourself instead. Pack your things. Today." Her eyes widened. "You can't do this." But Mr. Lawson cut her off. "She can," and she just did. By evening, suitcases lined the porch. Melissa stood on the driveway, her eyes blazing with fury. The November wind whipped her hair, but no one reached to fix it. No one offered comfort. Daniel stayed inside, silent tears on his face. He didn't stop her. He didn't even open the door. Melissa screamed once, a wordless cry of rage, then stormed to her car. The tires screeched as she sped down the street. And just like that, the mansion was quiet again. I walked through the halls slowly. Each step felt lighter. The weight of weeks, months was finally gone. I touched Robert's armchair, the one Melissa tried to box away. I sat down, the leather worn and warm. Tears filled my eyes, but they were different tears. Not of sorrow, of release. Daniel entered quietly. He stood by the fireplace, his head bowed. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I should have stood up sooner. I should have seen what she was doing." I looked at him, my heart heavy and full. "You're my son. You made mistakes, but you came back. That's what matters." The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, peace settled for the first time in months. Justice had been served. The price of greed was paid. And though scars remained, the mansion was mine again. My life was mine again. The house is quiet again. No shouting, no whispers behind closed doors, no laughter laced with cruelty. For the first time in months, the air feels warm. The walls no longer press against me. The mansion is mine again, not just on paper, but in spirit. Melissa is gone. She packed her things, stormed out, and hasn't returned since. Word spread quickly. Neighbors whispered, relatives shook their heads. She became the woman who tried to steal a mansion and lost everything instead. She called Daniel a few times. He didn't answer. The last I heard, she was staying at a cheap apartment 20 miles away. Her power is gone, her mask shattered, and in her place only the truth remains. Daniel stays with me now, not as a boy needing his mother, but as a man trying to rebuild trust. He cooks dinner some nights. He helps fix the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. He sits with me on the porch at sunset, just listening to the cicadas hum. We don't talk about Melissa much. The wounds are still fresh. But sometimes he whispers, "I almost lost you, Mom. I'll never let that happen again." And in those moments, I see the boy I raised. I see Robert's son. and my heart, though scarred, begins to heal. Life feels different now, simpler, calmer. I still bake apple pies. I still water the hydrangeas every morning at 8 a.m. And sometimes Mrs. Carter joins me for coffee, reminding me that good neighbors can be like family. Maria still comes by her laughter filling the halls Melissa once tried to claim. We joke about painting the walls bright colors to wash away the shadows. And for the first time in months, the mansion feels alive again. But I've learned something I want you to hear. Family can hurt you in ways no stranger ever could. The ones closest to your heart can be the ones who cut the deepest. That was my pain. Yet truth is stronger than lies. Proof witnesses courage those things hold weight even when words fail. That was my truth. And hope is what keeps you standing when the floor falls away. It's what whispers hold on, there's light ahead. Even when your son forgets you, even when you eat dinner alone, even when you feel invisible, hope waits. Quiet, steady, unshaken. That was my hope. And action, that's the part no one can give you. You have to take it yourself. I could have left. I could have accepted defeat. But instead, I unlocked the study. I found the papers. I called the lawyer. I gathered allies. And I stood up when the moment came. That was my action. So here I am, a 67-year-old widow, still standing, still fighting, still calling this mansion home. Melissa lost everything she schemed for. I lost months of peace. But I gained something greater, the strength to know that no one, no matter how cruel, can erase me. And now I ask you, what would you do if the person you trusted most suddenly turned against you? Would you stay silent or would you fight for the truth? Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought in courts or in wars, but at the dinner table with the people you love most. And sometimes winning means not revenge, but peace. So I leave you with this. Hold tight to your truth. Protect your hope. And never ever let greed take your voice away. If my story touched you, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Has your family ever faced betrayal? And don't forget, subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine. Because life isn't always simple. But together, sharing these stories, we find strength. We find truth. We find hope. The mansion is quiet. The battle is over. And for the first time in a long time, I feel free.